Keep moving forward. Life is for the living. Don't get stuck in the past.
Top leadership expert, international best-selling author.
Hard work
is like a dirty word in the world right now.
I go to what the Spartan warriors said. Sweat more in training and you'll bleed less in war.
Now with Robin Sharma.
Worldly success without a joyful heart is fool's gold. It's a hard time, and yet there's never been so much opportunity in this world right now.
Success occurs in the privacy of the soul.
It takes a lot of work to build a great company. You go through a lot. There's a lot of sacrifices. You know, it's all about leadership and taking risks. If you're closed to a new idea, you might just miss the idea that changes your life.
Robin, man, it's awesome to have you here on the Learning Leader Show. Welcome.
Hi, Ryan. Great to be with you.
I'm curious, you write in your latest book about the fact of moving to a farmhouse in the Italian countryside. What made you want to do that?
Well, the winters just got too cold for my bones, and I fell in love with Rome a number of years ago. Just the beauty of the city, the monuments, the Roman people, the Italian culture, and of course the mozzarella di bufala and good pasta. So it seemed like a good time to move a number of years ago.
How is it?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
As I read about in the introduction, a friend once said to me, you cry twice when you move to Italy. First, when you first move there, because it's not the most efficient place in the world. And second, every time you leave, because it finds its way deeply into your heart.
I can feel that, man. I love the quote that you wrote about from Rick Rubin in your book, which is success occurs in the privacy of the soul. What does that quote mean to you?
Well, I mean, that's one of the through lines of The Wealth Money Can't Buy. Worldly success without a joyful heart is fool's gold. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that money is not important. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with accumulating a lot of it if that's what you want to do. Having said that, I believe there's 8 forms of wealth. Money is only one of the forms of wealth. And to make a lot of money but lose your family along the way, to have a big stock portfolio and to lose your friendships along the way, to scale a business or multiple businesses and get sick along the way, as many of my clients have mentored billionaires, sports superstars, entertainment royalty for 15 plus years, and many of them have pursued this mountaintop only to realize that there's been some massive costs. And so what I'm trying to do is offer people a real framework, 8 forms of wealth, focus on each of those forms of wealth. Money is one of them, but focus on the other 7 as well for a truly rich life.
Why do you think this has become an issue? What I mean by that is you hear these stories of a wealthy older person usually speaking to a younger person earlier in their career saying, I miss so many of my kids' important events because I was traveling for work. I accumulated a ton of wealth, however, got divorced or lost relationships with the really important people in my life. I feel like more and more of this story is out there now, and that's probably also why you probably decided to write this book. Why is this? Why is this such a problem?
Cultural hypnosis is one of the answers I would humbly give to you. We are programmed from an early age to measure success and wealth by cash in the bank. But I've met so many super rich people who are cash rich and their life poor. So I think it's cultural hypnosis. Our early caregivers, like our parents, for example, often they pass along their programming and it's make a lot of money, buy a big house, have a lot of things, and you'll be successful and happy. And it makes me think of what Jim Carrey, the Hollywood icon, once said. I wish everyone could be rich and famous to realize it doesn't make a difference. So if we're thinking that if we make more money, we'll wake up that day. I mean, I think of one of my friends, he sold his company and he said, we were waiting for the money to get into the account. We were just watching. And I said, what was it like? And he said, well, it was incredible. Once the money went in, my net worth soared. And he goes, I realized I didn't feel any different. And it makes me think of the Zen proverb, wherever you go, there you are. So there's nothing wrong with making money and having beautiful physical things. There's 25 chapters in the book on fifth form of wealth, money, that deconstructs and explains exactly how the billionaires I've worked with think, do, what their habits are. But may we make it our servant and never our master.
It's funny, Robin, you write about ski instructors. I was out in Colorado a couple weeks ago with my family, and we sent our youngest daughter, who's 9 years old, to ski school. And the joy of her ski school instructor, he took such great care of her, both before it started when she was a little nervous, and then, you leave them for the day, which we missed her terribly, and then pick her up at the end of the day, and she's actually skiing down blues and greens. It was amazing. But the joy of the ski instructors in his eyes and his smile. Can you share more about the thought of why ski instructors may not be rich, but a lot of them have a rich life?
Well, that came out of the mouth of my ski instructor. I was trying to get my level 1 ski instructor certification, and I had this amazing man teaching me how to be a better skier. And Ryan, we had some of the best conversations I've ever had going up the chairlift. And he once said to me on one beautiful day, us ski instructors aren't rich, but we have rich lives. And this man had a woman he loved and who adored him, fantastic children, had amazing food every night over a barbecue, and spent his days in the mountain turning people on to skiing. So that's one of the key ideas in the book, which is, we're pedestaling in some ways the wrong people. Or maybe not the wrong people. Maybe we should be putting other people on pedestals as well as the moguls and the financial tycoons. Because the reality, you know this very well, but it takes a lot of work to build a great company. You go through a lot. There's a lot of sacrifices. It's all about leadership and taking risks and all of those things. And I celebrate the rewards of those financial tycoons. But what about the teacher who raises 20 kids under tough circumstances and goes to work every day with great pride, and who helps kids, grow up to be people who do amazing things in the world? What about the gardener in a neighborhood who does beautiful gardening and makes the neighborhood fantastic and leaves every person he or she meets better than they found them? Isn't that someone we should celebrate as well? So integrity in some ways is more valuable than money. So is authenticity. That's a wealth we should celebrate.
Robin, I'm curious how this impacted your life. You start out as a lawyer, right? You're doing a job that you grow up where parents say, that's a noble profession. And it is. Like it's useful. We need them, right? That's you. You also write, and I don't know your full story, but I'm looking forward to getting into it. And there's this book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And I have to imagine it changed your life. But you went through this evolution from doing a job that is viewed in society as, probably put you on a pedestal. You do extended education. It's really hard to do it really well. And you left. You left it to write and to serve and to help other people. What was that like, that transition from doing a job like that to doing what you do now still to this day?
Well, the first thing I'd say is success in society with an empty soul is fool's gold. So I became a lawyer not because I had the instincts or enthusiasms to become a lawyer. I became a lawyer for the reasons you're suggesting. The world teaches you in some ways, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an accountant, whatever, and it's safe and it's reasonable and you'll have a great life. And so I did those things and I became successful and I studied very hard, and I'd wake up in the morning as a litigation lawyer and I'd look in the mirror and I didn't like the person who was looking back at me. And so I decided to go on an odyssey of sorts, a lot like Julian Mantle and the monk who sold his Ferrari. And I started interviewing elders and learning how to meditate and experimenting with all these different modalities and reading these classics. And I made a fairly significant transformation. And so I decided to write about it in this book. I wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, which I self-published in a 24-hour copy shop. Started selling it one person at a time to evangelize the message. You're right. The book eventually changed my life. It became this worldwide phenomenon. But what I learned is Some of the richest people don't look rich. Some of the wealthiest people in the world are wealthy because they're running their own race and they're living by their values and they're doing work that lights them up versus makes them a ton of money. And what I'm trying to do in the Wealth Money Can't Buy is offer that framework, the 8 forms of wealth, growth and wellness and craft and mastery and all of those, to realize that a lot of us have these forms of wealth in our own backyard, but we might not be noticing them because we've bought into this cultural mesmerization, which is get a lot of money in the bank account and then you're at the top of the mountain.
What about, though, for Robin, the people in between that, which is they get a job because they have responsibilities in their lives. They have a wife or a husband. They have kids. They have car payments. They have a mortgage. They're sending people to college. They're doing all of those things you do for your family. And I know these are things that I want to do and I'm working towards. But they may not have the skill of Robin Sharma to write a book that's going to sell millions of copies or to follow their, quote, passion. They need to put food on the table. And so to do that, they need a job. And they may not love that job. They may just like the job and it may provide them that. What about for that person, which I think is a lot of people?
I'm deeply sensitive to the world we live in right now. It's a very confusing time. It's an age of polycrisis, age of hyperinflation, age of a cost of living crisis. I totally hear what you are saying. And I honor everyone who's working hard to put food on the family table. Having said that, we have a lot more choice than we might not notice. And I find it interesting, there's one person who might be in a job and they're really stuck. And there's another one who's in a job where they're stuck, but they find the resources to launch a business in their free time. A lot of us are at work and yet we have free time, and the free time is spent chasing trivial pursuits or watching mindless entertainment or following influencers who don't really add much value to our lives. And so if there's someone who is in a job where they feel they're stuck and they're doing it because they need to pay the rent, I hear you loud and clear. I would say also, what are you doing with your free time? There's 168 hours in a week. You're spending, let's say, 8 hours a day on work. That leaves a lot of free time. And there just are a lot of people who are spending their finest hours playing with their phones in their free time. Use that time to get fit. Use that time to enrich your family life. Use that time to read a book that all it takes is one idea and one book that opens you up to a whole new world of possibilities. Use that free time to launch a business that creates an app or a YouTube channel or start a podcast. I mean, it's a hard time, and yet there's never been so much opportunity in this world right now. So let's not be victims either, myself included. Let's apply and live our promise, especially in hard times.
You write about becoming a skilled lifetime multiplier. What is that?
Well, I think it's a great idea. So that's the second form of wealth, which is health. I call it wellness. Obviously, that's a common term, but that's what I've labeled the second form of wealth because one wisdom tradition says when we are young, we would sacrifice all of our health for wealth. And when we get old and figure out what life is all about, we'd sacrifice all of our wealth for one day of good health. And so that chapter in that section is all about hacking longevity. And it's all about understanding that if you can add another decade to your life, imagine what would happen. I don't subscribe to even my age right now. I just call it my age in air quotes, Ryan. It's the driver's license age that society has put on to me. And I think your social age, whatever that age is, 25, 35, 85, that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I think it's really important never to let an older person into your body. I think it's very important not to retire. I think it's important as you go from 30 to 40 to 50, get fitter, be anti-fragile, to use the words of Nicholas Taleb. What I'm suggesting, as you get older, get younger. As you get older, get fitter. As you get older, extend your lifespan. And there's a lot of biohacking and fitness and all sorts of modalities coming out that are helping us do that. The key principle to that chapter of the Wealth Money Can't Buy is imagine adding another 10 years to your life, 10 more years of practice on your craft. Imagine how good you'll be. 10 more years of accumulating money and letting it compound. Imagine that. 10 more years of time with your family and friends. 10 more years to serve the world.
Taking care of yourself physically is one of the things we actually have control over, right? If you have an able body, I think it is an amazing waste to not use it, right? And what a great way to start a day. To start a day by sweating, by doing something hard physically, by pushing yourself beyond your current capabilities. And you do that each day and then watch that compound. One of my maxims for life is do things that my future self would thank me for. Something as little as backing into a parking spot is one of those, but another one is working out every single morning. And I think that's one of the things I still have control over and will never, ever, ever take that for granted. And I believe my future self will certainly thank me for doing that.
I hear you loud and clear. I wrote a book called The 5 a.m. Club. And one of the elements of that morning routine is sweaty exercise before the sun comes up. I'm on this long book tour, but one thing I did not miss this morning, was to get into the gym. Even if I have to beg the security guard to open the gym for me, as I did the other day in Dallas, they were kind enough. It was the Rosewood in Dallas, and they opened up the gym. So I'd go to what the Spartan warriors said. They said, sweat more in training and you'll bleed less in war. Mm. And I think the way you begin your day dramatically sets up the way your day unfolds. And I start my day with some MVP. In sports, MVP is most valuable player. Well, in my methodology, MVP is meditation, visualization, and prayer. I just can't put words into how powerful that is every day. Just after you've woken up, meditation, visualization, and prayer. It makes you so strong. We all have insecurities. We all have fears. We all want to get these projects done. We all want to have live our richest life. This is a tool. It's simple. It works. These days, I do it for 45 minutes from 4 o'clock to 4:45. I meditate, visualize, and pray. I just want to share it with you and all of your many listeners and viewers from around the world who aren't doing it. It's a great, great tool. And then at about 5 o'clock, I hit the gym. I have a elliptical and et cetera, et cetera. And I sweat, and we all know it releases dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, which increases focus, reduces cortisol, et cetera, et cetera. And the last thing I would say is there's a chapter in The Wealth Money Can't Buy. You might like it. You probably read it. And it's the way you show up in the gym sets up the way you live out your life. So being in the gym, it's the old idea, the way you do one thing sets up the way you do everything. So getting in the gym builds discipline that flows into every other area of your life. Being in the gym and going to the jagged edges of your workout causes you to go to the jagged edges of your work as an entrepreneur. Being in the gym and being patient allows you to be patient when you're pushing your Project X out in the world. Showing up every morning as you do, amazing. Shows consistency, and consistency is the mother of mastery. So your gym work is a microcosm of your life work.
The visualization is interesting to me, Robin. Can we go inside that process? Because for some, this is some woo-woo stuff, right? They start rolling their eyes. They maybe click fast forward on the podcast. I don't know about that. To me, it makes me curious. I don't really do it, right? I actually don't really do any of your MVP, just to be quite frank with you. And I think maybe I would be better served if I did. And so the closest to that I would say is a journaling practice, which is being thoughtful and reflective and getting thoughts out of my head onto the page. But I'm really curious about visualization and how this helps you. And actually, if you could take us inside what it looks and sounds like.
Okay. And you mentioned journaling, which is something I deeply believe in. I'd love to share my 5 journal prompts every morning. So please remind me to do that to be of service to you and your community.
Okay.
MVP, meditation, visualization, and prayer. Quite humbly and respectfully, I don't know why anyone would think it's woo-woo. It's based on so much science.
Yep.
I've mentored many NBA players, NFL players, etc. Meditation, for example, the Chicago Bulls under Phil Jackson and the LA Lakers, meditation was central to their winning formula. Visualization, any elite skier, footballer, etc., visualizes. So if you're closed to a new idea, you might just miss the idea that changes your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a business person and you're closed to a new idea, you might miss the idea that will allow you to build your fortune. So I just humbly suggest, anyone who might roll their eyes, as to use your words, be open to it. So what is the process to get granular? 4 a.m. is amazing. 5 a.m. is fantastic, but 4 a.m. is working really well for me these days. I get up. I live in an old farmhouse in Tuscany. I open the window. I lay in bed. My life partner, Elle, is still sleeping. So is my Chihuahua. Well, she's not a Chihuahua. She's a Chihuahua Yorkie. I call her Super Chum. And for 45 minutes, I lay in bed on my back so I don't go back to sleep. And meditation could be breathing, just inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. When my mind goes to maybe the day ahead, I get back to my breathing. What does that do? It trains you to focus. Focus is necessary to reach any Mount Everest. Or what I might do is a body scan. So I might notice in my chest there's some kind of tightness. Well, that could be some fear over something. Maybe it's the new book coming out or whatever. So to heal a wound, you need to feel a wound. And this is absolutely relevant for productive creatives and entrepreneurs and business builders. Right? If you're full of fear, you're never gonna maybe notice what's going on in my body. It's called a body scan, and notice, oh, in my solar plexus, it's tight, and I'll just pay attention to it and breathe into it, and it'll start to slowly release. So that's the meditation. Sometimes I'll listen to a guided meditation, which you can find tons of them, lots of apps. They're very helpful. Some of them are 10 minutes long, and it'll guide you through a meditation that'll help. I just did one for my list on beating jealousy. But there's on jealousy, on calmness, et cetera, et cetera. Second part of the MVP method, visualization. So I have a concept called my 4 beautiful projects. Every quarter, I pick 4 beautiful projects to focus on. The best leaders are minimalists versus maximalists. Focus on 4 projects every quarter, not 50. What destroys a great company is too many yeses to every shiny toy. So Ryan, I'll lay there in bed and I will actually close my eyes and see myself as if those 4 projects have been completed. And sometimes the sequencing, victory on the sequencing, getting the projects done. So I put myself into the picture like any athlete does. Put myself into the picture. I don't know, did you watch them, Niki Lauda and James Hunt, that movie Rush, the old movie Rush on the F1, but you could see James Hunt moving the gears in the Grand Prix, see him going through that, and any athlete's going to do that. So I would say for you, in your 4 beautiful projects, see yourself going through all the steps, ideally, to get to victory.
Interesting. So you're actually focused on not only the end. So let's just take, for example, something we both do. You get on the stage and speak before a lot of people, right? This is something that can be nerve-wracking for people, right? I still have that it's not nerves, but it's that anticipatory feeling before you go on stage. It reminds me of playing a football game, which I played in college a little bit afterwards, where you're not fully nervous because you're prepared, but you still feel that kind of, you're juiced up a little bit. So when you are getting ready to go on stage, do you have a visualization process leading up to that moment of, this is how the crowd's going to react? This is what it's going to feel like when I finish my speech. This is what's going to happen when I tell this story or transition to that part of the talk. I'd love to hear how you visualize an awesome keynote speech.
I have a keynote coming up on Thursday in Prague. I'm already visualizing it early in the morning.
Nice.
I'm seeing myself on the stage being of service. I'm imagining myself connecting at a very deep level. Sometimes I'm actually practicing what I want to say. I'm seeing the audience being delighted, the client being enriched. I'm already visualizing and sending out the intention in advance. And again, this is not woo woo. This is what any good positive psychologist would call you a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your intentions become self-fulfilling prophecies. You want to set yourself up for victory. Great championship teams win the championship before they put a foot on the court. That's what we're doing here. Second thing, you're a very good interviewer, by the way.
Thank you.
You're very well prepared and you're a very good interviewer. I have to honestly give you that compliment. Second thing, you said, well, what about this nervousness? I've been at this 31 years and I still have that nervousness, and I hope you never lose it, because it means you care. Mm-hmm. It means you know the stakes are high. It means your heart is in the game. The moment you lose, to use your words, that anticipatory feeling, it means you've checked out. Mm-hmm. A lot of the wealth money can't buy also is, especially the section, the fourth form of wealth on craft. There's a lot of cautionary tales about the Titan's decline, a lot of cautionary tales about people who rest on their laurels. So the moment you think you're at the top of the mountain, you're on the path of descent. The thing about a master is they always think like a beginner. And so being hungry and nervous and maintaining that beginner's mindset, 40 years in the game, 50 years in the game, is how you sustain it. So Steve Martin, there's a new docu-series about him, and he was saying, like, before he gets on stage, he's still nervous. There was an old actor, Henry Fonda, who would still get physically sick before every movie role because he cared so much.
It's funny, man. There are days when I wish I didn't have that feeling because I want to be able to live normally. But then I also know, even like days leading up to a big speech or a big event, I'm like, God, why is this affecting my entire life? It affects everything, how I feel, everywhere. But that also is a great signal, as you just said, that you care, and that productive paranoia in a way can be productive, as Jim Collins writes about. And I feel like it'll go away at some point, but it never does. It never, ever goes away. It's like that feeling of the next big moments coming up. Like you said, it's a couple of days. You're going to be in Prague. You're going to be on stage probably with thousands of people. And if that feeling goes away, it probably means it's time for you to do something else.
I hope it never goes away. And you speak to a key principle I believe in, which is hard is easy and easy is hard.
Yeah.
So anyone who wants to do something amazing with their lives, and I'm not only talking in business, I'm talking spiritually, I'm talking with your family. You've got to pursue hard over easy. Society says, live an easy life. I'm suggesting live a hard life. Why does it have to be easy? Have the hard conversations. There's a chapter in the book, Make Your Project X. Your Project X is your Taj Mahal. Your Project X is your Eiffel Tower. Your Project X is your Catcher in the Rye. Your Project X is your Moonlight Sonata. That wasn't easy. That was hard. But you live like that, even personally. You have the hard conversations with your partner. You do the hard workout. You read the hard books. Give you a gorgeous, fulfilling, easy life. You look at the people who have hard lives, they're reading the easy books, or they're watching the easy videos. They're living the easy life. Last thing I'd say on that, potential unexpressed turns to pain.
You've gathered so many of these one-liners that actually make me pause and write a note, Robin. It's almost happened in less than 30 minutes, more than I can remember in a long time. Where does this come from? Where do these kind of maxims for living? You even kind of write this way in your books. If you look at your short chapters, the titles, my first read through the book, I actually just went to the ones that piqued my curiosity first, wrote notes, and then I kind of read it all the way through. But it's interesting the way you think and the way you speak. Where did you come up with this, or how did this become your style?
I think the more you do something, the more you find your own voice and rhythm.
Yeah.
So I've written a lot of books. create a lot of content. I have a great family life, great enthusiasms in my personal life, and yet my work is my oxygen. It's my craft. It's the fourth form of wealth, the pursuit of mastery. I mean, hard work is like a dirty word in the world right now. But a job is only a job if you see it as a job. For me, it's a great honor to write these books. It's a great privilege to be in the field for 31 years, and I'm always thinking about simplifying complex ideas, creating mental models around them, coming up with thoughts that will help people be more creative, productive, prosperous, and serene. It's a huge part of my life. And I think if you immerse yourself in any one field, over time, you develop your original ideas, your original ways of expressing it.
Robin, I recently had a meeting with my financial advisor, and he's like, okay, what age do you want to retire? And I said, never. What do you mean? I'm doing exactly what I want to do. Why? I get to talk to these brilliant people and then share what I learn from them with others, the companies I work with and advise, and the senior leaders and the speeches and all of it. Why would anyone ever want to stop doing that? It's the coolest thing in the world. And he kind of paused for a second and goes, okay, maybe we'll rework the math. Maybe you'll slow down a little bit. Like, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. It feels to me like the work you do is something that you would never want to retire from. Is that accurate?
Well, if I retired, it'd be like taking the oxygen out of my system.
Yeah, I just felt like that, right? Yeah, I mean, like my work is my oxygen. Is that healthy? Is that a good thing?
Well, the great thing about a human life is we get to live it on our own terms and according to our own values. And
Yes.
I'm not here to say what's right or wrong. Some people want to retire. Bless them. Great. Go out and play golf. Fantastic. For me, that would be the kiss of death. And in the 5am Club, I made it really clear, the twin cycles of elite performance. There's the high excellence cycle. That's your season where you're pushing productivity and working really hard and running all your protocols. And then there's what I called in the book, the deep recovery cycle. There's a time to rest. Rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. There's a time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. There's a time to go on vacation. That's equally important. Having said that, you used a term, you said, is this normal or whatever? I hope you never become normal. Like
I think I said, is it healthy? I don't know if I said it's normal. I don't care about being normal. Is it healthy? Sometimes I wonder.
Well, I don't know what's more healthy than doing work that adds value to people, pursuing a mission that lights you up,
Yep.
dealing with challenges that introduce you to more of your strengths, doing your best to push magic into a world and marketplace that is full of mediocrity. I think that's an amazing way to spend the rest of your life. I think it's super healthy. You seem to be pretty healthy.
Feel pretty good. One of the other cool things about doing this type of work, which I'm curious to get your experiences, when you do something that's useful for others, whether it's you write books, you make podcasts, or you get your thoughts out into the world, I've found that one of the coolest parts is it works as this magnet for people to come to you. And a lot of them are if you're doing work that you truly believe in and it lights you up, it feels like the people who then have that magnetic pull to you are the type of people you want to be around. And so it creates these amazing relationships and opportunities for you by putting your thoughts out into the world, and that hopefully they help people. I can't even imagine how this has impacted you. All the people you've worked with, the companies, the speeches, the advising, the consulting. What's that been like for you now for 31 years of putting your thoughts out into the world and to seeing what comes to you?
Deeply fulfilling. And it's, on this book tour, I've been meeting people at the book events and hearing the stories. I mean, that's the wealth money can't buy right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say a few things in reply to what you mentioned, Ryan. Faith is very attractive. And what I mean by that is when you believe in your mission, when no one believes in your mission, eventually the whole world starts believing in your mission. Bud Tribble was a Apple executive when Steve Jobs was there, and he coined this term, the reality distortion field. And he said, you hear these ideas that Steve Jobs has, and you don't believe they're possible until you're in his orbit physically. And then when you're with them, you drink the Kool-Aid and you believe it's absolutely possible. And so the first thing I would say is when you really believe in your mission, because instinct is so much more powerful than intellect, you start enrolling people into that mission because they feel your faith and your self-belief. Second thing I'd say is generosity in business and life beats scarcity every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
That's why personal development is the first form of wealth and the wealth money can't buy. Personal development. The more you develop yourself through MVP, through journaling, through working with healers, through reading the great autobiographies, through nature walks, etc., you start to feel the world is a safer place. And it's not about scarcity and giving as little value as possible and taking as much money. You start shifting and trusting in the fairness of the world, and you give. And when you give, I call it the 10x value obsession. When you give your customers 10 times the value in any product that they have any right to expect, they fall in love with what you do. Third thing I'd say is your intention and what you're trying to do is felt by your consumers. If you work from a place of service, if you really work with the intention of love and trying to give incredible value and push magic in the marketplace, it is amazing. When people consume the app, read the book, watch the video, they literally start sending you messages. I can't believe how much you care. And the final thing I'd say is, how do you build a movement one relationship at a time? So I've been at this a long time. And I do my best to remember who puts food on the family table. So I still go to Instagram, and that person who can do nothing for me, that 18-year-old with a startup in Austin or in Bogota or in Bombay, Mumbai, I pull out the voice, the audio part on Instagram and send them a note. I can't do it for everyone. I try to do a little bit every day. All I'm trying to say is I really love the people who I get to serve. And I think that's a key element to building a movement that's sustainable. And I think it's also the right thing to do.
I love that, building one relationship at a time. Do the things the Airbnb guys talk about, doing things that don't scale. They were personally taking pictures of like apartments and places for a very long time, but blocking time to be responsive and useful and helpful to people who are following you, who support your movement, who have gotten benefit from what you do. Be responsive. Like, I think that's part of the responsibility of leadership, is being there for people when they reach out. Does it take time? Of course. Is it a sacrifice? Yes. Could you be doing other things? Certainly. But man, I don't know if there's a better, or it's at least one of the better uses of time, is to be responsive to people who are grateful for your work and who, if your work has changed their life, the least you could do is respond and be curious and try to help even more. It's cool that you still do that.
Why are we in business if it's not to build relationships?
Yep. Genuine, right?
You know, I have a chapter that talks about something so simple as handwritten thank you notes.
Yep.
I mean, you have a great meeting with a new supplier. You have a great conversation with a new customer. Go out and go back to your office or your home office and write them a sincere thank you note. You know, I've got a fair number of years on my belt, and one thing I've learned is the value of flying 10 hours for a 10-minute meeting. I mean, I'll fly 10 hours to break bread with someone, look them in the eye, build a relationship. Again, on this book tour, just doing my very best, whether I'm tired at the end of the day after podcasts and media. I'm at a book signing. I'm here in Miami tonight. I've got a book signing. And I'm going to do my best to listen to every story and to be present and to say thank you. How many times have you met someone that you have respect for and they weren't there? They physically weren't there.
Such a bummer, man.
It is. It's really disappointing. And it's okay. People have bad days.
Hmm.
I have bad days, but I think it comes down to, you don't hear a lot about this, but approach is really important. What's your approach to business? What's your approach to life? And if we were to deconstruct approach, I think your approach is your winning formula.
Hmm.
And if I was to deconstruct approach, if we were sitting together in my writing room at the farmhouse, and I love doing my deconstructions, I would deconstruct approach. And your approach, I don't know if I'm getting too granular here, but your approach will be your beliefs, your approach will be your habits, and it'll also be your values. And I think one of the most powerful values, and it's a gargantuan competitive advantage, but it's respect.
Hmm.
Like if you really respect people, and of course, respect comes from self-respect. But if you really respect people, then writing the handwritten thank you note or leaving the voicemail or showing up on time or giving them some kind of a gift, it's natural. Right? You don't have to work it. You don't have to work at it. And that's why, there's a business I dealt with just today. It's an online business. Of course, I won't mention the name, but you can tell they really don't care about their consumers.
Mm.
At every step of the way, it's designed to kind of mislead and get money. It's a really short-term strategy. I'd rather play a very long game and build a rich relationship and over deliver on your promises at every step of the way.
Hmm.
And it might look like you're losing, but over time, you're definitely going to win.
Well, Robin, one of my core values is being thankful, and the critical behavior to match that value is to leave people, places, and things better than I found them. So pick up trash, right? Make the place better. But there's a specific prompt I can ask myself at the end of each day, which is, did I leave the people I interacted with better than I found them? And as you've talked about consistency, if you consistently can ask yourself or have a few prompts at the end of each day to ensure you're living in alignment with those values, I like your chances of good things happening. I like your chances of feeling fulfilled, of feeling content, of being happy, right? Of feeling like you're progressing. And so that is an intentional thought before every interaction or every meeting or every room you're about to walk in, whatever your values are. That happens to be mine. So I pause for just a very brief second and saying, remember, my goal is to leave these people better than I found them. And if you do that, and it just time after time after time, it just seems like cool opportunities come your way. And so that's why I love your work and why I think this is so useful. It's that it's just very thoughtful and very intentional about living in alignment with your values, right? Your definition of success, not necessarily somebody else's. And once you get clear on that, again, sky's the limit, man. The trajectory for you is just going up, up, up.
I totally hear you. You use the word prompt again, so I better give you my 5 journal prompts to be
Yes.
of service every morning in my journaling. So I go 4 to 4:45 is the MVP. We talked about it. 5 to 6 is the workout. 6 to 7, 2 cups of espresso, journaling, and I go for a 15-minute nature walk with my little dog. The 5 a.m. club works, but 4 a.m. is also a great technique to play with. In my journaling session, there's 5 questions. Number 1, what am I grateful for? We know that gratitude is the antidote to fear. We know there's lots of good science confirming that asking yourself deliberate gratitude, as the positive psychologists call it, is a great way to retrain the feature of the human brain known as the negativity bias, which is basically we scan our environment for threats all day long. Gratitude helps you fight that and look for what's to be a possibilitarian. Second journal prompt every morning is, where am I winning? So if we can celebrate the 1% wins, I've been teaching that philosophy for a few decades. But the 1% wins, the micro triumphs, it gives you momentum and it protects your hope versus never feeling you're at the top of the mountain. Third question, very powerful. What will I let go of today? One of the chapters at the beginning of The Wealth Money Can't Buy in the first form of wealth growth is do not be a resentment collector. That question will help you let go of any resentments and grudges you're carrying. Fourth question, what does my ideal day ahead look like? You talk about intention. 3 or 4 lines about your ideal day. It works so powerful because what you write down helps you follow through on your commitments. Fifth question, so powerful. It's what needs to be said at the end. What needs to be said at the end? Imagine every morning while the rest of the world is asleep, you ask yourself, what needs to be said by the people I care about on the last day of my life? That will help you live to the point. It'll help you become more fearless because you realize the shortness of life. It'll help you live your life versus your neighbor's life.
Man, really helpful. One of the parts you write about near the end of the book is avoiding the old person flaw. And I found this, Robin, actually, when I analyzed some of my relationships over the past few weeks, that this is not just for old people. This is, in fact, for all people, specifically reliving old high school days as a football player. And I've even done this before, right? We all have probably. But the old person flaw is that they spend hours in conversation living in the past. And I've tried to be much more intentional about this. Andrew Brandt, who I had on the show, who has this kind of hashtag never peak mindset of just always trying to get better and living in the present and not talking about the past, but the present. Can you share more about why we should avoid the old person flaw?
Well, the past is not a prison to be chained in, but a school to be learned from. Mm-hmm. So exploit your past to build a more amazing present. But a lot of us have a tendency to just get stuck there. And so that chapter in the book, Avoid the Old Person Flaw, is sometimes you hear old people and they're talking about things that happened 30 years ago, and they spend a lot of their time talking about it. And to me, what that means is their best days are behind them versus ahead of them. And you never want your best days behind you. You always want them ahead of you. So when you stumble, which we all do, learn from it, and don't suffer from toxic optimism. Feel the pain, acknowledge it. Otherwise, you're going to suppress it and you're going to carry it into your creativity and productivity. But process through the pain, learn from it, get the lessons, and KMF, one of my favorite acronyms, KMF, keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Life is for the living. Don't get stuck in the past. Avoid the old person flaw.
So good. Wealth money can't buy. The 8 hidden habits to live your richest life. Robin, I really appreciate you being here in the midst of a bunch of craziness. You're down in Miami. You got all these things going on. I've admired your work from afar for the entire existence of this podcast, which is more than 9 years. So it's really cool now to get the opportunity to meet with you. And I had very high expectations. And I think what you've done is opened my mind even more and made me rethink some things, moved me emotionally, as well as I know it's going to create some behavior change. And that's the trifecta that is, I think, really hard to have happen. So I'm very grateful for you, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Really an honor to be with you for this time, Ryan. Keep up the amazing work that you're doing, and really enjoyed our time together. I appreciate your preparation and your skill in doing what you do.
Thank you so much, man. It was awesome.